Hi, welcome to an introduction to Adobe Photoshop. This video is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is an overview of Photoshop's interface. Part 2 is a demonstration. And Part 3 shows you how to export. To begin, open Adobe Photoshop. On the home page, click on New File on the top left of the window. Photoshop has some presets to help you choose what size file you would like to use. I am going to click on the Print tab and select Letter as a preset size. You can always customize your file size on the right side of the screen on the Preset Details window. Once your file size is selected, choose the title for your file. I am going to title my file Photoshop Demo. Photoshop files will default to pixels for the measuring unit. You can choose your measuring unit by clicking on the down arrow next to Units. I'm going to change my measuring unit into inches. Depending on the project, you may choose to use vertical or horizontal orientation. I am going to use horizontal. Underneath is the resolution. If your project will be used as a digital file, it is recommended to use 72 pixels per inch. And if you're going to print it, it is recommended to use 300 pixels per inch. I am selecting 72 pixels per inch as my resolution. The color mode is also dependent on what the file is going to be used for. RGB is for digital screens and CMYK is for printing. I am choosing RGB. If you're using a file that has uniform shapes and would like to use it with a transparent background, choose transparent for the background contents. When done selecting everything, click on Create. Now before adding anything to the document, I will save it. To save, I will go to File on the top menu and select Save As. We can choose to keep the file name or change it to something new. I am going to keep the current name. I will select where I want to save it. Notice that if I click on the down arrow to the right, my locations will expand. I will choose to format my file as Photoshop and click on Save. Then click OK to maximize compatibility. As you're working on your file, remember to save it often. Photoshop has many tools. In this video, I will cover some of the most common tools. Please feel free to experiment with other tools. The toolbar will appear on the left side of the window. However, it can be moved around the workspace. To move, click and hold the top of the window and then move around to its new location. The tool can be freestanding or it can snap into other windows. If you move the toolbar close to other windows, you will notice a blue line appear next to it. If you want to place the toolbar next to the other window, just release the toolbar when you see the blue line. I will cover the following tools: rectangular marquee, lasso, magnetic lasso, quick selection, eraser, spot healing brush, clone stamp, crop tool, and blur and sharpen tool. The rectangular marquee tool makes rectangular selections. The lasso tool creates freehand selections for irregular shapes. The magnetic lasso makes selections by detecting the edges of the object. The quick selection tool selects using similar tones on the edges of images. The eraser tool will erase pixels. The spot healing brush blends pixels surrounding the selected area to create new pixels. The clone stamp tool paints with pixels from selected area. The crop tool removes part of the image outside of the selected area. The blur tool creates a blur effect on the selected areas, and the sharpen tool creates a sharpen effect on the selected areas. I will show you a demo in which I will create a collage of pictures. To begin, I will import the first image I want to work with. To import the image to my composition, I will go to File on the top menu and select Place. Notice that there are 2 options that start with Place. We have Place Embedded and Place Linked. Place Embedded will place the image in the file, and Place Linked will place the image on the file, but the image will be linked to its original image. If you want to have an image that is updated automatically when it's changed in its original location, use Place Linked. I am using 5 images on this file, and I will import all of them as Place Embedded. Now, I will find my first image and click on Place. My image is now centered to fit on my file, and to finish placing it, I will click Enter. Notice that the image has a document with a square on the bottom right corner. This means that this image is actually an embedded smart object, and I will not be able to edit until I convert it to a rasterized file. To rasterize, I will select the image, then I will right-click on the image and select Rasterize Layer. Now I'm able to edit my image. My first layer is of bricks. This will be my background layer. I'm just going to make sure this layer covers the whole background. To do this, I will select the layer, then I will go to the top menu and click on Edit, select Transform, and choose Scale. Now I will click on one of the corners of the image, and while holding down Control Option, I will pull the image out until it fills the whole background. I will now lock the layer by going to the Layers window, and with the layer selected, click on the lock icon. Now I will place and rasterize the second image. A few options to delete the white off this logo. You can use the rectangular marquee tool and delete the two large white areas on the side. To do this, I will click on the rectangular marquee tool. Then I'm going to click on the top left corner of this white area. I will click and hold until I get to the top of the grid and the letters. Then I'm going to get as close as I can to the right of the grid and the tiger. Once I see the selection, I'm going to click Delete. Then to delete the selection, I'm going to click Command plus D on the keyboard. I will do the same to the right side of the tiger. Now I'm going to zoom in on the tiger's head by using the zoom tool. I will click on the tiger's head while holding Shift on my keyboard. To move, I will click on the spacebar to activate the hand tool, and I will move it using the mouse. The second selection tool I'm going to use is the lasso tool. The lasso tool can be used to freehand draw a selection. I will click on the lasso tool, and then I will select my starting point in the tiger's head and draw around it. I'm going to use my mouse to draw it, so it's going to be difficult to cover a large area. To cover a large area, I'm going to switch to the magnetic lasso, which will attach itself to the pixels on the edge of the image. This tool works very well in straight lines. To select the magnetic lasso, I will click on the lasso tool and hold. Then select magnetic lasso. Click close to the grid on the top left side of the tiger. Then start to slowly move the tool around the grid. If you make an anchor by mistake, just press delete and it will take you to the previous anchor. If your magnet is not attaching, you can click to place the anchor. When you reach the first anchor point that you created, you will get a circle. This lets you know that you complete a section. Notice that you can use feather with these tools to soften the edges of your selected sections. The larger the feather, the softer the edges. This is useful for non-sharp objects or to create a smooth transition between the selection and the background. Once the selection is completed, click Delete. Then click Command plus D to deselect the selection. Now to delete the small pieces of white around the text, I will use the Quick Selection tool. I will go over the toolbar and select Quick Selection tool. The Quick Selection tool is a brush, and the size and shape can be changed on the top bar. Once my size and shape is selected, I will start with the right side and start clicking on the white areas. When the areas I want to delete is selected, I will click Delete. I will go around and delete all of the white areas. Notice that I'm not going into detail due to time, but if you want to perfect the selection, you may need to use a combination of tools, like time and patience. Now I'm going to start the new layer. I will place my logo in the top center of the composition. Then I'm going to lock my second layer. I will place my third layer and rasterize it. This layer has a cute cat with lots of fur. To select the cat, we're going to use the eraser tool. I will go into the toolbar and select the eraser tool. I'm going to start by erasing a large area of the white around the cat. So I'm going to increase the size of the brush so I can remove a lot of areas quickly. Once I have a large eraser, I will click and while holding, move the eraser around the cat. Now I'm going to zoom into the cat's head. I'm going to click on the zoom tool and while holding Shift, click on the cat's head. Once I have the size I want, I will click back on the eraser tool. Now I will change the size of the eraser brush. And now I will change the opacity to around 50%. Then I will click and move the eraser around the cat being careful not to get too close or erase important parts. I will have to move the brush by the same area several times to have a smooth transition. Feel free to change the size and the opacity of the brush. Feel free to use multiple selection tools to delete the white off the cat. For this demo, I will now move the cat to the right and lock the layer. Okay, now I will place my next image, image 4, and rasterize it. I have a bowl of chips, but notice that there is a crack on the bowl. I'm going to zoom into the bowl using the zoom tool, and while holding shift, click on the crack of the bowl. Now I'm going to use the spot healing tool. I'm going to increase the size of the brush so it covers the width of the crack and a little more. Then I will click and hold as I move it along the crack. The spot healing brush will use pixels around the area to recreate what beliefs should be in the selected area. I will now make the chip bowl smaller, move it to the left, and lock the layer. Now I will place my next image, image 5, and rasterize it. In layer 5, I have broken cookies and crumbs. However, I want to add more chocolate chips. I'm going to zoom in closer to the chocolate chip using the zoom tool and clicking while holding down shift. Now I'm going to click on the clone stamp tool. I'm going to increase the size of the brush to be a little larger than the size of the chocolate chip. Now I'm going to place my brush on top of the chip, and while pressing Option, I'm going to click on the chocolate chip. Notice that now I have a transparent chocolate chip on my cursor. I'm going to select where I want to place the second chocolate chip, and click and move around to copy. Notice that if you move over, it will start copying the other crumbs of the cookie. Staying in this layer, I'm going to show you the blur and sharpen tool. These tools are helpful in creating a smooth or a sharp transition between objects. For example, if I want the cookie to seem like it is on top of the brick, we will use the blur tool to create a smooth transition. I will zoom into the cookie with the zoom tool, and while holding shift, click on the cookie. Then I'm going to the toolbar and click on the blur tool. Then notice you can change the size of the brush and the strength. I'm going to start with a strength of 50 and a 20 pixel size brush. Then I'm going back to the cookie. I will click and hold while moving around the cookie. Then I'm going back to the cookie. I will click and hold while moving around the cookie. If you want the object to stand out from the background, you can use the sharpen tool. The sharpen tool is found by clicking and holding the blur tool and selecting sharpen tool. You can also change the size of the brush and its strength. I will keep it at 50% strength and 20 pixel brush size. Then I will go around the cookie and make the edges sharper, and notice how it starts separating from the background. Now that layer 5 is done, I will resize it, move, and lock the layer. The last tool I will show you is a crop tool. The crop tool is used to crop the image. I will zoom out of the image so I can see the edges. I will click on the zoom tool and select zoom out. Now I will click until I see the edges. Now I will click on the crop tool. On the top of the toolbar, I can choose what ratio I want to use to crop the image. I will use the handles on the side of the image to select my area. When I'm done selecting the area, I will press enter. Now we are done, but I want to change the color a little. I will click on the layer and click on adjustments at the bottom. There are a few to choose from. I'm just going to show you levels, but feel free to experiment with other adjustments. With the layer selected, I will click on adjustments and select levels. Now in the properties window, I can adjust the levels. I can change the brights, darks, and midtones. I will decrease the whites and increase the darks. The adjustment layer will affect all the layers underneath it unless you right-click on the adjustment layer and select clipping mask. Then it would only affect the layer right under it. Now I'm going to save. I will click on File on the top menu and select Save. If you want to save the image as a different file, click on File on the top menu and select Save As. In Format, click on Save a Copy. Now choose the format you want. If you want to use this for the web, choose JPEG. If you have a transparent background, use PNG. When done selecting your format, click Save. This completes our introduction to Photoshop. Thank you for watching our video.